Diamondback Firearms, famous for making some of the smallest single stack 380s and even 9mm, only slightly bigger than the 380. In fact, it's roughly the same size as an LCP. There were, however, some things that people complained about with this gun. We'll talk about the older DB9 and what's new with the latest generation Diamondback DB9 Gen 4 coming up next on GBGuns. Perhaps one of the most misunderstood or underappreciated pistols out there. Incredibly thin, incredibly small, as I mentioned earlier, roughly the same size as an LCP. In fact, I don't have an LCP to compare it with because why carry that when you can carry 9mm? Cheaper ammo, wider variety of ammo out there. In making this, Diamondback made it super slim. You notice there's no slide stop. Little 6 rounds, so 6 plus 1, 7 round capacity. Pretty impressive for something that fits in your hand. With these snag free sights and a little tiny barrel. The problem was the ammunition with these was recommended limited to 124 grain and lighter. And some people complained about that, even though 115 and 124 grain is what most people shoot anyways. And there's a huge variety of defensive choices in those weights. People said, well, maybe I don't quite trust it. Also, the snag-free sights went out of fashion in exchange for sights that you could do a one-handed rack off of. Although this is sort of a bad breath distance kind of gun. It's really just about putting 9mm in your pocket. The Gen 4 has made some changes. So opening up our box, we see that we get a pouch. We have our trigger lock and the manual. Now this manual, of course, is covering in general the Diamondback firearms, but it does use real photos, which I appreciate. Nice and clear photos. So props to them for including that. We'll get this and the little pouch out of the way and take a look at the Gen 4 DB9. So before we get into things, of course, showing clear, look at that, the slide stayed back. That's because we've got a slide stop now. Get the magazine out. Magazine does stick a little bit, but so this is kind of a bad breath pocket gun, but now with improvements. We can see it's clear. Drop the slide. We'll do our look around the gun to look at features, and then I'll bring out that older DB9 and we'll look at them side by side. So up front, we see we've got a fairly snug slide to frame fit, which is easy to do when you've got such short distance there, but there's also some improvements inside that make this fit tighter than, say, the SIG 320. We don't have rail space. Do have checkering on the front of the trigger guard for a two-hand grip, finger forward, if you like that. With a gun this small, that might work. We've got plenty of serrations up front for press checking. Our slide, stop, and release, which is protected to keep you from accidentally bumping it up under recoil and locking back. Keep in mind, this is a totally defensive firearm. That would not be something you'd want to have happen in a defensive situation. It's annoying on a range. It could be dangerous if you're shooting this to save your life. Magazine release is also very flush. See, it doesn't stick out at all there. To prevent it from getting bumped during carry. It does make it a little bit harder to push. You've got to really get your thumb in there and mash on that button. But like I said, this is a pocket gun. Continuing on the front strap, we've got the aggressive style checkering that is in mode these days, right where it counts. Thanks to relief on the trigger guard and the pinky rest on this magazine, I can actually get all 3 fingers on a gun this small, which is kind of neat. Relief for the thumb. Smooth where there doesn't need to be texture. Texturing on the back. Get the mag out again. Drop the slide. We'll look at slide to frame fit in the rear. It's good and tight. We've got a 3-dot sight picture. Nice, square, and classic. And speaking of square, you notice that the sights have a hard edge on the front for racking if need be. Now they appear to be possibly polymer. Hard to tell. So maybe not hard use, But once again, this is a pocket gun. Now, to show you just in contrast with the original DB9, which we can see is clear, but I can't lock back because it didn't have that side lock. Size-wise, putting the two side by side, pretty much remain the same size. The new one might be a little bit longer. Notice barrel thickness appears to be slightly different. I can tell you that though it's not printed yet, Diamondback has told me these are good to go for above 124 grain and even plus P. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that plus P always beats on a gun harder than anything else, so your chances of breaking things go up and the life of your firearm go down. Trigger guard looks pretty similar. You can see the texturing is better on the new one. And definitely the difference in that sight picture. It's going to be much easier to aim with this one than it was with this little guy. Now, to take a look inside the gun, this is where some of the new magic is. We're going to release the striker, pull down on the takedown pins, and pull back a little bit. And the slide comes off. You can see we've got a captured recoil spring on a metal rod, not polymer. There's a little barrel. Beautifully clean, nice new machining. Those of you that know the old DB9s might appreciate this steel insert that's inside there. That's helping keep everything rigid and keep everything in place. To contrast, you can see, though there was some in the earlier models, not as much. Doesn't go quite as far. So, since the new DB9 can potentially survive our What's for Dinner test, we'll of course get it out and run the What's for Dinner. Our lightest currently, I believe, is 65 grain, going all the way up to 158 or 160 grain. Dropping our nozzler match in here, we can see that the chamber is fully supported. That's a big safety thing and survivability, and also just means that you're getting the most pressure possible pushing that bullet before it heads out the barrel, because it's not going to bulge in the case. So when we take this out, we'll run What's for Dinner, of course, full mag +1, of course, some accuracy, and you can expect multiple opinions from myself and Maddie and or Kendra as well. Maddie AR and Burgundy Bomber when they come out. And a smart move Diamondback has coordinated, and holsters already exist. We've got a crossbreed holster here that holds this thing. I really appreciate when gun makers go through the trouble of getting holsters already made in advance for newer guns, because there's nothing worse than buying a new gun and then not having a holster for it. Would I have necessarily gone with a 2-clip style for such a small, lightweight gun? No, I don't think it needs it, but you know what? With how thin this is, and these 2 clips on, I bet it's pretty easy to forget you've even got it. It'd probably be incredibly comfortable. Haven't shot it yet, so I haven't carried it yet. Can't tell you about that yet, but we'll give it some tries when we get out there. Very excited about the new DB9 Gen 4 from Diamondback. Thanks for watching.